What if I told you that a lot of the pain you're carrying doesn't just come from what people have done to you, but from what you've allowed to keep happening? Not because you don't value yourself, but because somewhere along the line you started thinking love meant putting up with too much. That toxic behavior was passion. That cruel words were just someone's personality. This video is here to clear that up. Because what Carl Jung wrote wasn't just for theory, it was a warning. And today, we're going to face that warning head on. This isn't about judging other people. It's about helping you finally see things clearly. Because when you spend years explaining away the things that are breaking you inside, your body learns to live with that pain. Your mind begins to call it normal. And your soul slowly fades until fear becomes your everyday life. Jung didn't write his books just to collect dust. He wrote them to wake people up, to cut the invisible cords, tying them to harmful relationships. One of his most important truths: what you don't make conscious becomes your fate. If you don't recognize what you're allowing, you'll relive it again and again. This video is your guide. It uncovers 10 behaviors Jung would have warned you about, based on his deep insight into human nature. Stick around until the end, and you'll not only start to see these patterns, you'll finally understand how to stop excusing what shouldn't be excused, start choosing yourself, and find your strength again. It won't be comfortable. This isn't about soft landings. It's about shaking you awake. Because maybe that's exactly what you need. Maybe you're watching this at the end of your rope, after ignoring your own voice, your anger, your grief, one too many times. This is where you get to let all that out. Think about it. How many times have you said, "I'm fine," when every part of you was screaming that you weren't? How often have you given someone another shot when they didn't even respect the first one? How many times have you toned yourself down so someone else wouldn't feel small around you? This isn't about learning to hate anyone. It's about finally learning not to turn on yourself. Jung spoke about the shadow, that hidden place where we stuff all the things we're too scared to feel. Every time you accept what should never be accepted, a piece of you slides into that shadow. It doesn't disappear. It just grows quiet, hides away, and starts tearing you up from the inside. You stop drawing lines because you're afraid to lose someone. But what you're really losing is yourself. Keep doing that, and eventually there's no room left in your soul, no voice left in your heart, and you forget who you were before all this. That's why this message matters. There are things you never should have let slide. It's not about being dramatic. It's about getting real. No one should grow up thinking emotional chaos is just part of life. Some actions aren't accidents, they're choices. Some ways people treat you aren't quirks, they're warnings. And if you don't notice them early, your peace is what gets taken. Jung put it simply: what you don't integrate, you repeat. If you don't face what you've accepted in the name of love, your mind will keep dragging the same stories back. Not because you don't care about yourself, but because you haven't stopped the cycle yet. Whether you're in a relationship right now, still recovering from one, or just taking space to breathe, you're here for a reason. Each of these 10 patterns has probably shown up in your life before. Now it's time to face them. We're not here to make toxic habits sound poetic. We're here to call them out. The first step toward healing isn't forgiveness. It's seeing things clearly. And once you do, something inside shifts. A strength you never realized was there. your self-respect. Jung once said, "People will go to any length, no matter how irrational, to avoid facing their own soul." But you being here, it means you've chosen to turn inward. You're done lying to yourself. You're no longer willing to keep living in ways that strip away your spirit. Some words hurt more than yelling ever could. Some silences cut deeper than any insult. And some patterns slowly crush you without making a sound. If you don't recognize them for what they are, you can spend years stuck in situations that keep wounding the same parts of you, leaving you convinced you're somehow not enough. This video will walk you through how these 10 behaviors slowly pull you away from your true self, how accepting them as normal damages you, and how saying no more isn't about revenge. It's about reclaiming your peace. The moment you stop tolerating what's unacceptable, you open the door to a whole new story. This isn't entertainment, it's truth. It's meant to reach deep, show you what no one else has had the courage to say, and put words to the ache you haven't known how to explain. So you stop confusing loyalty with losing yourself. You might feel angry, sad, even shaken as you watch this. That's perfectly okay. Those emotions mean you're waking up. Don't shove them down. Let them rise. Every feeling is a signal that you're finally ready to face what you couldn't before. By the time this ends, you'll carry a promise. Never again will you make excuses for what damages your soul in the name of love. Never again will you put yourself last just to keep someone who doesn't honor you. This message is both a mirror and a way forward. It reflects what you've survived, and it shows you what's possible now. Some relationships remind you what you're worth. Others teach you what you'll never tolerate again. You're not broken because you put up with too much. You're strong because you're ready to stop. You're awake. You're aware. And that's all it takes to begin again. So stay with us, because what you discover here might just shift everything. We're diving into 10 behaviors Carl Jung would have urged you to walk away from. Because your soul deserves room to breathe. This is more than just a video. It's an act of self-respect, a turning point, a beginning. 1. Subtle emotional manipulation. When someone makes you feel bad for having boundaries, for needing things, or for not behaving how they expect, that's not love. That's control, dressed up in guilt. Jung believed the soul suffers when its truth is suppressed, and that pain begins the moment you start bending under someone else's emotional weight. Try this. Make a list of times you acted from guilt instead of genuine desire. What patterns pop up? Who tends to trigger this most? 2. Disrespect disguised as truthfulness. Some people claim they're just being honest when they're really just being mean. But honesty without kindness isn't honesty. It's just cruelty wearing a mask. Jung once said that true growth comes from being seen, not constantly torn apart. Don't let anyone treat you like you're small or undeserving. Real love doesn't chip away at your self-worth. Try this. What cutting remarks still echo in your mind? Were they really helpful, or just hidden attempts at control? 3. Control, pretending to be concern. When someone starts making your choices for you, isolating you from others, or putting limits on your freedom under the excuse of it's for your own good, that's not love. It's fear and control dressed up as care. Jung spoke about the dark side of power, which often stems from someone's own inner chaos. Someone who truly cares about you would never take your freedom. Try this. Where in your life does it feel like someone else is holding the reins? Did you confuse that for protection? Why? 4. Gaslighting, warping your sense of reality. This is one of the most damaging emotional weapons out there. If someone constantly tells you you're overreacting, too sensitive, or imagining things, they're not just disagreeing. They're erasing your experience. Jung said the things that trigger us can lead to deep understanding, but not if we're always made to feel crazy for having emotions. That kind of doubt eats away at your trust in yourself. Try this. Recall a moment when you felt something deeply but started second-guessing it. What did you say to yourself? Did you honor how you felt? 5. Suppressing who you are inside. There are people who dismiss your passions or dreams simply because they don't understand them, but that doesn't give them the right to put out your fire. Jung believed that what we push away gains power over us, while what we accept transforms us. Don't make yourself smaller just to fit into someone else's limited world. Try this. What parts of yourself have you quieted to avoid being too much? What's waiting inside you to speak again? 6. Consistent lack of empathy. Everyone messes up sometimes, but if someone never truly listens to your pain, always invalidates your feelings, or makes everything about them, they aren't emotionally present. That drains your spirit over time. Jung taught that empathy is the foundation of connection. Without it, relationships become one-sided transactions. Try this. Think about the last time you opened up about something painful. Did they meet you with care or criticism? What did you really need in that moment? 7. Betrayal on repeat, always with an excuse. Saying sorry without changing anything isn't an apology. It's a way to keep you around. Jung talked about how repeating the same wounds is a sign of unresolved trauma. If someone keeps hurting you and calls it a mistake every time, you might miss the pattern because you're stuck inside it. Try this. Map out the moments you said, "Never again," but stayed anyway. What was holding you there? What fear was beneath it? 8. Self-centeredness pretending to be independence. Some people just don't know how to give because everything in their world revolves around their own wants, moods, and needs. You're the one doing the emotional heavy lifting, remembering the important stuff, being present, while they only show up when it benefits them. That's not partnership. It's emotional use. Try this. Think about the relationships where you're giving more than 70%. How does that sit with you? Do you voice it, or do you bury it? 9. Sarcasm as the default communication style. When everything is filtered through sarcasm, it stops being funny and starts becoming painful. It's passive-aggressive behavior dressed up as wit. Jung believed that whatever we can't say openly gets pushed into the unconscious, and sarcasm often masks repressed resentment or contempt. Try this. Which sarcastic remarks have lingered in your mind? What emotion do you think was really hiding underneath? 10. Withholding emotion as punishment. Being ignored, shut out, or treated like you don't matter cuts deeper than most realize. That's emotional detachment used as a weapon. Jung believed that connection is essential to our mental well-being. So when someone repeatedly pulls away and leaves you in silence, it's not just cold, it's emotional harm. Try this. Think of a time someone gave you the silent treatment. How did it shift the way you saw yourself? What did you find yourself doing just to feel noticed again? Every one of these behaviors leaves a mark. They're not just isolated incidents. They create patterns that disconnect you from your own soul. And the more you accept them, the more they blend into your idea of normal, until you start believing that maybe you deserve this kind of treatment. But you don't. You don't deserve to be confused, dismissed, drained, or erased. You deserve space where you can exist fully, where you can breathe without fear, feel without apology, speak without being turned into the villain. You deserve love that honors you. And that kind of love starts within. Jung didn't teach us to turn our pain outward. He taught us to stop blaming ourselves for the pain we've internalized. That's how you break cycles. That's how you shift from reliving the same stories to writing new ones. So pause, revisit these 10 behaviors, and ask yourself, which ones have I gotten used to? Which ones still sneak past my awareness? Which ones keep replaying in my relationships? Because only when you see it clearly can you choose something different. And only when you name it can you begin to heal. You're not the same person you were at the start of this journey. You see things now. You see you now. And that changes everything. If this message has resonated with something deep inside, we invite you to leave this comment. I'm done negotiating my peace to stay in places that break me. Let it be a statement, a boundary, a commitment to the self-respect you're ready to claim today. When Jung spoke of the shadow, he wasn't only pointing to the dark parts of us. He meant all the things we hide away. Our sorrow, our voice, our limits, our sense of worth. Letting harmful behavior slide is often just a way of avoiding that shadow. But now, you know better. And that means you're ready to start protecting the parts of you that deserve the light. The reason we keep falling into toxic relationships isn't because we're emotionally weak. It's because there's an unhealed wound running the show beneath the surface. Freud called it the repetition compulsion. This idea that unprocessed trauma keeps drawing us toward the same kind of person, as if hoping the story will turn out differently. It's not about self-sabotage, it's about unresolved hope. When we start accepting manipulation, coldness, or emotional neglect as normal, we're silently agreeing to a deal with our wounds. Not a spoken deal, but an emotional one. It's the moment we decide that a few crumbs of affection are worth tolerating cruelty. But Jung warned us, if you don't bring your unconscious into awareness, it will control your life, and you'll think it's just destiny. The heart of depth psychology isn't about blaming the people who hurt us. It's about understanding how those wounds have shaped us, so we can stop handing our story over to the same kind of character over and over. Every time you tolerate behavior that tears you down, you're teaching your subconscious that this is what love looks like. And honestly, there's something worse than being hurt, having to convince yourself that hurt is acceptable. That's the slow, subtle poison of toxic love. You find yourself making excuses. Everyone slips up. No one's perfect. It's not that bad. But the real damage isn't always in what was done. It's in how deeply you've buried it, and how that silence starts to suffocate your soul. When someone stays in a relationship where they're constantly belittled or disrespected, it's not because they don't have a way out. It's because their emotional system has been conditioned to believe that being hurt is still better than being left. This is where Jung's ideas connect with Adler's. When someone feels deeply inferior, they often end up in imbalanced relationships where they carry all the emotional responsibility. Choosing to say no more isn't just a boundary, it's a sacred act. It means you've stopped waiting for the world to treat you right. and you've started treating yourself like you matter. That quiet internal shift changes everything. Freud spoke of the pleasure principle, how we're wired to avoid pain. But if love and pain have become intertwined in your mind, then the pursuit of love becomes a path of confusion. You start chasing intensity, emotional highs, and dramatic swings, thinking it's passion, but it's really just the echo of your old wounds. Most of these harmful behaviors don't devastate us because they're loud or obvious. They hurt because they're subtle and because they come from people we care about. That's what makes them so hard to recognize. You don't set boundaries with someone you're still idealizing. That's why Jung said individuation, becoming your true self, begins the moment you stop believing someone else is going to save you. Real change begins when you speak up for yourself about things you used to stay silent about. Not with rage, but with truth. Not to punish, but to protect. That's when dignity turns into something you actually live. Someone who truly loves you won't play games with your pain. They'll hold it with care, honor it, and stand by you through it. But if someone uses your vulnerable moments to gain control, shame you, or keep you small, that's not love. That's a pattern you need to end, not defend. Jung said, the goal of life isn't to be perfect, it's to be whole. And wholeness sometimes looks like standing your ground and saying, this isn't okay anymore. Staying quiet while being mistreated isn't noble. It's a form of losing touch with yourself. You deserve to come back home to who you are. The most dangerous kind of relationship isn't the one that yells. It's the one that quietly erases you, piece by piece. It makes you second-guess your worth, your reality, your voice. And the cruelest part? It often wears the mask of love. But love shouldn't leave you confused. Real love brings clarity. Adler once said that a meaningful life is one where you're free to grow, where you're not holding anyone down and no one's holding you back. So if your relationship demands that you shrink to stay, that's not love. It's emotional captivity. Some words don't need to be yelled to leave a mark. A single, "You're too sensitive," or "You're overreacting," can echo in you for years. Say them enough times, and they build a quiet wall between you and your emotional truth. What's unacceptable doesn't always show up with flashing signs. Sometimes it hides in the everyday moments. The cold, "I don't care what's going on with you." The dismissive, "Do whatever you want." Or the eye-rolling, "Here comes your drama again." You don't need loud voices to feel mistreated. Being casually dismissed over and over is enough to erode your sense of self. Jung once said, every relationship is a mirror. So when someone makes you feel small, unheard, or constantly unsure of yourself, they might not be creating those feelings from scratch. They're touching an old wound you've been carrying. But now you can finally face it. Viktor Frankl said that suffering is part of the human experience. But he also made a powerful distinction. Some suffering transforms you, and some destroys you. If you're watching this, you're at a turning point. Maybe part of you still wonders, if I stop putting up with this, will I end up alone? That's one of the traps of damaged love. It convinces you that setting a boundary means losing connection. But what you lose isn't love. It's dependence. Your soul knows when something's off. You might smile on cue, keep up appearances, post the right pictures. But if you're living with anxiety, confusion, sleepless nights, or a heavy heart, that's your inner self waving a red flag. You're not watching this by accident. You're here because something deep inside is waking up, and that part of you is tired of settling for halfway. It's done with conditional love, with relationships where you feel like a problem just for being yourself. True emotional wellness begins the moment you say, "My peace is non-negotiable." That moment might be quiet, but it will feel like the beginning of real freedom. When Jung said the greatest privilege in life is to become who you truly are, he meant this. Stop performing just to be accepted, because what starts as a mask eventually becomes a trap. If you had to hide parts of yourself just to be loved, that wasn't love. It was a trade. You didn't come into this life to negotiate your essence. You're here to live it fully. Jung gave us a powerful tool, the ability to look beneath the surface, into the hidden patterns shaping our lives. If someone constantly tells you your emotions are too much, or makes your boundaries out to be the issue, they're likely projecting their own inner conflict onto you. Jung said, people project what they can't face in themselves. So every time you tolerate being emotionally dismissed, you're silently carrying someone else's baggage. One form of emotional harm that often goes unspoken, when someone mocks your healing. It might seem small, but it cuts deep, because healing is sacred work. And when someone treats your growth like a joke, it's a clear sign they're not walking their own path. Jung taught that becoming your true self, individuation, is uncomfortable for people who are still hiding behind their masks. So if your healing unsettles them, that's not your fault. It's their reflection. Keep growing anyway. Being constantly devalued chips away at who you are. Jung once said, depression is like a woman in black. When she appears, don't push her away. Invite her in and listen to what she's trying to tell you. If your emotions are treated as annoying, dramatic, or inconvenient, that's not a safe emotional environment. Your sadness, your anger, your fear, they're not problems. They're signals. They're trying to guide you toward something deeper. From Jung's perspective, one of the most damaging things someone can do is make you turn against your own intuition. He saw intuition as a kind of inner radar, something that picks up on truth through the unconscious. When you're in a relationship that constantly makes you second-guess what your gut is telling you, you lose that sense of direction. And when you lose that, you start to lose your sense of self. When someone repeatedly dismisses your emotional efforts, that's not just neglect. It's quiet aggression. Jung believed that the soul needs to be seen and acknowledged in order to flourish. When your healing, growth, or pain is brushed off or minimized, the message being sent is that nothing you do will ever be enough. That belief can slowly unravel a person from the inside. If someone keeps asking for forgiveness without ever changing, they're not looking for healing. They're looking for a loophole. Jung said that real transformation only happens when someone confronts their own internal conflicts. If someone repeatedly hurts you but refuses to face their own darkness, they're not evolving. They're using forgiveness as a shield. Forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone keep wounding you. It means choosing to let go, but with awareness, not at your own expense. A common trap is believing that if you sacrifice enough, you'll finally be loved or understood. Jung would have told you that sacrifice, when your truth goes unheard, only leads to resentment. And resentment is a red flag that you've been tolerating something you should have walked away from long ago. If you're always the one compromising, staying quiet, bending yourself just to maintain peace. That's not partnership. That's emotional imbalance, and it will drain you. Jung taught that becoming who you truly are, individuation, requires separation. Sometimes, the most compassionate thing you can do is walk away, even if the other person claims to love you. Because real love doesn't demand that you shrink or suffer to keep it alive. If a relationship is costing you your mental stability just to function, then it's not love. It's survival mode. Staying silent just to avoid conflict while your insides are screaming is the opposite of what Jung meant when he said to bring the unconscious into the light. The things you never say don't disappear. They collect. They show up as anxiety, insomnia, physical pain. If you can't share your feelings without fearing their reaction, you're not in an emotionally safe space. To close this section, here's something I want you to do. Take a slow breath, gently close your eyes, and say to yourself, "My soul deserves to be heard, not ignored." If anything in this video has stirred something awake inside you, go to the comments and write exactly that. My soul deserves to be heard, not ignored. Let it be your declaration, a sign that today, something shifted in how you relate to yourself and the world around you. You can't build a fulfilling life on the quiet habit of betraying yourself. Jung once said, one of the greatest illnesses of modern life is the soul forgetting who it is. And sometimes you don't even notice how far you've drifted until you find yourself excusing pain, calling emotional neglect love, and tolerating things you once said you never would. Adler believed that a lot of what we put up with in relationships has nothing to do with love or respect. It's often about trying to fill a hidden sense of inadequacy. The more unworthy you feel deep down, the more likely you are to settle for the bare minimum. But you weren't made for leftovers. You were born to sit at your own table, the table of your truth. Some relationships don't teach you how to love. They train you how to survive. And the more you survive, the more disconnected you become from who you truly are. That disconnection can go so deep that even when real love finally finds you, you won't know how to open up to it. Your soul has become used to bracing for battle, not being cared for. Erich Fromm said that love is an art, one that takes maturity, responsibility, mutual respect, and real understanding. If you're constantly having to explain why being yelled at, lied to, or ignored isn't okay, you're not dealing with someone emotionally mature. You're caught in someone else's projection, someone who hasn't yet learned how to love in a conscious way. One of the hardest psychological patterns to break is the savior complex. The belief that if you just love hard enough, you can heal someone. But as Jung made clear, no one truly changes until they confront their own shadow. If you keep doing the emotional heavy lifting that someone else should be doing for themselves, you're not rescuing them. You're enabling their emotional immaturity. When you keep accepting hurtful behavior, your subconscious starts believing it's acceptable. Your body keeps score. Your soul knows the truth. And if you stay, despite the tears, the ache, the silent suffering, you're sending a dangerous message. This is okay. But it's not. And deep down, you know it. Viktor Frankl once said that inner freedom is our final human right, even in the middle of suffering. Putting up with humiliation, neglect, emotional coldness, or manipulative guilt isn't strength. It's abandoning yourself. No meaningful life can grow from suppressing your truth. Every time you choose someone who makes you feel like you're not enough, you're feeding a wound that already believes it. It's a painful cycle. The less you value yourself, the more you attract people who reflect that lack. And the more they reinforce it, the harder it feels to leave. That's why real healing starts with waking up and breaking the pattern. Carl Rogers spoke about the need for unconditional self-regard. That means loving yourself not only when you feel strong, capable, or successful, but when you're lost, tired, broken, or uncertain. If someone only shows up for your best self, they're not loving you. They're loving the version of you that performs. But you're not a performance. Some relationships make us feel like children again, like we have to behave, or we'll be punished with silence, distance, or being left behind. That's not adult love. It's emotional regression, and it keeps you small. If you're still here, reading this, that's not weakness. It's resilience. It means you're done settling for scraps. You're no longer okay with relationships that ask for your silence in exchange for temporary peace, or ones where you're always the one holding the emotional weight. Your soul, your instincts, your deepest self, they're tired of playing small. This is your moment to start listening to them, trusting them, and choosing them. Not because you're selfish, but because you finally realize that loving yourself isn't optional. It's the ground everything else is built on. Jung, Frankl, Adler, Fromm, and Rogers all echoed one deep truth. A healthy relationship doesn't demand your sacrifice. It values your presence. It doesn't ask you to shrink. It welcomes your full self. You're not here to fix people who won't take responsibility for their own reflection. You're not here to keep showing up in places that treat your feelings like a burden. You're here to become someone who no longer accepts what breaks their spirit. Because life truly begins when you stop shaping it from old wounds and start shaping it from awareness. And if you've seen that today, then you've already taken your first step. You're freer than you were yesterday, and that's already enough to begin. Hey, if this video resonated with you, don't scroll away just yet. Take a second to hit the like button. It really helps get this message in front of more people who need to hear it. And I'd love to hear from you in the comments. You can write something like, "I'm done negotiating my peace to stay in places that break me," or simply share what stood out to you. Your words matter. They keep this community strong and growing. If this kind of content is helping you on your healing journey, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a new video. And if you feel inspired to support this work, consider clicking the join button below. Becoming a member helps me keep showing up here, creating videos that dig deep and speak to what truly matters. Your support makes it possible to keep this space alive and meaningful. Thank you for being here. Thank you for choosing yourself. And thank you for being part of this journey. Let's keep growing, keep healing, and keep waking up together. I'll see you in the next video.